City Council, President Green.
Yes.
What? Both the City Council. Talk. Parks and Recreation. Thank you. And Chairman Bowman.
On behalf of the Clay Township Board, all of the state,
Thank you very much. What we will do too, so if any of you talk, we do have a mobile microphone, is that correct? Or are we good with just where they are? So if you do talk, and this is more so to ensure that the video can pick you up, make sure you kind of pull one of the microphones towards you when you're speaking. So this is also a meeting that, yes, we have the formalities of calling everyone to order and a presentation. But if you have a question as we're going, go ahead and ask the question because we'd rather have that dialogue. We don't want you, if something pops in your head, we'd rather just address it and get the discussion. And if it's further in the presentation, we'll let you know. For the sake of some of the city council members or township board members might not necessarily know all of our park board members. So I'd like to go around the table, starting with Trustee Hensel, and have you introduce yourselves, and that way we all know each other.
Paul Hensel, Clay Township Trustee.
Jim Gerritsen, member of the Park Board.
Jen Christinas, Vice President of the Park Board.
Jeff Worrell, Carmel City Council at Large.
Judy Vaden, President of Carmel.
Tony Green, Carmel City Council, South Central District.
Teresa Ayers, Carmel City Council, North Central District.
Josh Kirsch, Parks Board and Parks Board appointment to the Planning Commission.
Jonathan Blake, Parks Board.
Katie Browning, Parks Board, representing Carmel Clay Schools.
Mark Westermeyer, Park Board.
Mark Farnell, Parks Foundation Board.
Rex. Lana Shrewd, Parks Board.
Got Pamela is forward.
I'm Paul Boland, President of the Clay Township Board.
Zach Nicely, Legal Counsel, Park Board.
Brian Bosmo, Legal Counsel for the Township and the Park Board.
Curtis Baumgartner, Assistant Director of the Park Department.
And I am pleased, we actually have several staff members here, so I'd like to go ahead and scream as loud as you can. Use your outside voices, but introduce yourselves. Tiffany, please start.
But the Sean should rather Edith Utah. Claudia Zeving, Resort Tura. Nicola Marks Team and Gabe.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Of course, Michael Klitzing, Director of Parks and Recreation. Pleased to have you here today because this is the culmination of approaching not quite 2 years of planning as we envisioned the future of Carmel Clay Parks and Recreation and established our mandate for the next 5 years and beyond. Always an exciting time for me because this process is a collaborative process. Obviously, the reason that we are all here today, it's a process that's also a collaboration with the residents that we all serve. So we'll talk a little bit more about how we came to the recommendations that we have, the strategic vision that we have. This is one of the things that for me as Director of Parks and Recreation, I'm really excited about because unlike a lot of communities that will create a master plan for their park system so that they become eligible for grants that are administered by the state of Indiana, especially through the Department of Natural Resources. And of course, that's a reason we do it, but that's not the sole reason we do it. This is a living, breathing document. It truly guides the management and objectives that staff works on over the next 5 years. So this isn't something that just sits on the shelf. It literally sits on my desk and I reference on a regular basis. And as an organization, we hold ourselves accountable to it. And we expect you to hold us accountable to it as well. I do want to make a couple introductions of our consulting team. We engaged Pros Consulting along with a team of sub-consultants to help us through this planning process. So Leon Younger and William Younger were instrumental in helping us gather all the feedback and work with us on what the strategy and vision for the future should be. Of course, with the I should point out that this process has been reviewed with the Park Board. Everything that you're hearing, we've already shared with the Park Board because we wanted to make sure, of course, we had their buy-in before we seek to ensure that we have consensus among our fiscal bodies to move forward. Because obviously, if we come up with a plan and the city council and the township board says this is garbage, then we're not going to get the support we need from you to be able to do what we do. So that's very important to us. If you'll go to the next slide, we'll sort of do an overview of tonight's agenda. And so I have this in front of me, so I usually don't like looking backwards, but I'm going to do that. First, the plan, we'll give an overview of the planning process, really how we collected the feedback, what we're doing. We'll talk about the findings that we had, not big picture, because we could spend hours just going over all the information that we've heard from the public and the different groups that we talked to. But we'll talk about that and the themes that we had. We'll talk about our strategic action plan, and we won't go into the granular detail of it, but we're going to give the overarching strategies that we have. If we have questions as we get into that, we can talk more about that, but we want to give you the big picture of what we're having. And then we'll talk about the forward focus, which is the top forward priority. So that everything in the strategic plan, of course, we're going to be working for it. But if resources, time become constraints, we know what our top 4 objectives are to move forward. So that's what we'll do. So talking a little bit about the master planning process, and actually I'll have Will jump in and share that with us.
Yeah, we kind of did it in kind of 3 phases. So we really looked on where the department is like today. And as part of that, we looked at park and facility assessments of everything that was included in the system and where they kind of were in their life cycle, and kind of give them a grade that DNR likes us to do. And also just good to see everything new that came online since the last iteration. It was a lot of parks were completely reimagined. We also looked at the level of service on kind of where certain amenities and facilities were in relation to population growth. We looked at other plans that have been done, such as the Bear Creek Park Master Plan, and we did a program assessment of the current department's programs. In regards to the community engagement, we did a statistically valid survey, an online survey that anyone in the community could take. We looked at the 5-year demographic and 10-year demographic trends analysis as how is the city growing, as well as what are some local trends that we should consider as it relates to recreation. We did a comparative analysis to other CAPRA and gold medal agencies around the country, just to kind of see where the department kind of compares itself to, and ones that that are kind of in your class as it relates to NRPA gold medal. We did interviews with about every person in this room that were one-on-ones for a good 30 minutes about a year ago, as well as we did a business plan for the Mona Community Center Water Park, and we also did one for the ESE and summer camps business plan for that. And really, it all kind of set up of how is the department going to move for the next 5 years, and what are the strategies. So we did needs prioritization on what we heard from the community. We did an operations review and a lot of staff focus groups. We had a perk impact fee that Baker Tilly did as part of our team. And then we built in a capital improvement plan based off of the priorities that we heard from the community, and funding and revenue strategies that the department should consider over the next 5 years. And ultimately, what Michael mentioned was the action plan and forward focus.
So I want to talk a little bit about community engagement. So Carmel Clay Parks and Recreation, almost since its inception, community engagement has been very important to us. I think that is what has driven our success. That's the reason that in just 33 years, we've been able to do so much, because we understand what the community wants, which then gives you as our elected officials and guardians of the park system for the park board the confidence to invest in parks. We view this as that the residents are our customers. We need to understand what our residents want. That it begins to especially puts us as a park system, because most park systems do not generate the amount of revenue, user fee revenue, that we give as parks. You've heard me say this before, but we have consistent over the last 10 years generated cheaper vehicle safe cost recovery. So if you take all of our operating revenues that we generate, community center fund, extended skilled rate, so our communities, all of recreation, we have some all market from park shelving to rears, everything that let me get money and divide or operating expenses, including general fund
anything services. That is us up last covered with 84%. The national average, as the most recent report from National Recreation Life Association issued earlier this year, is 25%. So, but I think all of you know that Josh is kind of but I mean, to do that means more plan install operation, and then would be that additional license. And to do that, achieve the cost recovery, we had to stay in the cyberns. But like it was, we're not just calling cost recovery just stunning profit based, our programs and civil things stuff. We're serving, millions of businesses each year that our park system, to parks, the big community there, taxes, when there's property taxes, things kinds of happy. But we also understand that they want because, we're sure some of the ideas that we had, but, it seems clear the case with what we're doing. And that's why, as we look to the SPI, the Western Recreation Master Plan, it was still what important was to not only, do what we have and pass it to back, but go a step further. Because if you rely on the traditional public meetings, now, I'll see a lot of political society, because people just find us like we have us. They couldn't be all. And we're asking people, think what or traditional, massive community park. We I have do that, but not as it's a relatively small percentage. So yeah, we had some of the public meetings, but we were more focused on going to where the public was. Because as we all know, we are an increasingly diverse community. And we also are a very busy community. People just don't have time to come to meetings. And the people that do tend to skew a little bit older, and which is nothing wrong with that and stuff. We want to hear from them too, but we want to make sure that we're getting representation and understanding what all age groups and all elements of the community are wanting from parks. So, we went to pop-up event. We went to events. We went to Pride. We went to farmers market. We went to a wide variety of things, events, so that we could hear from them. We did community focus meetings, so we went to specific organizations and groups of users to hear from them. And, of course, we're looking to make sure that we're getting a good cross section of our community. As Will earlier stated, we did a statistically valid survey, which is something that we've done for almost every comprehensive master plan. And we find that the information that we get from that it's pretty reliable, because if it wasn't, the decisions that we make from it wouldn't have resulted in what we've done so far. We also, because the statistically valid survey is an invited survey, and what that would do to make sure that the survey response for the statistically valid largely represent the community as a whole. But we also provide an online survey to make sure that those who weren't invited still have an opportunity to come. And what we found is the findings from the statistically valid, which if you do so many times, plus or minus 5%, roughly, are going to be the same results. But we found the results from the online non-statistically valid largely mirrored exactly what we got for the statistically valid survey. And then, of course, we did stakeholder interviews with elected officials and the park board and with other team groups that we work with, like Commonplace Schools. So talking a little bit about those intercept surveys, I mentioned in the Carmel Pride, the Carmel Fest, on Eldick, I think that's, the Farmers Market, but we went to a lot of different events. We know that we have a growing Asian community within Carmel, so we went to some specific events for that. Of course, you go to Carmel Fest or the Farmers Market, you see the entire community there. So, again, it provides opportunity for people to come to us. We also went to some events that people with disabilities tend to attend. Some of them that we offer, some that were offered by other entities. But again, trying to get that wide representation. I talked about the stakeholder groups. I think there was 18? 18 groups that we did. That's over twice what we've historically done. So I think we've done a good job in the past. We did an even better job to make sure that we're getting a wide variety. And
you've heard me say it too. I want to make sure all age groups. So that meant talking to high schoolers. That meant, talking to, Carmel moms. Just a wide variety of constituents. We even went to elementary school. So, elementary kids might not really understand the strategic plan, but we can ask what they'd like to see in their parks. And actually, those are some of my favorite ones to go to. It's really all the student ones. So whether it's elementary, middle, or high school. And actually, I had an opportunity today to visit with a class at University High School across the street. And whether it's at University High School, Carmel High School, it doesn't matter. I get really inspired. Sometimes we can be concerned about the youth and it's like, oh my God, where are they going to take this? But every time I've talked with them, I get so inspired about the future because if I was really that smart when I was a kid, what would we be? So, again, and we talked about the statistical analysis. We use a nationally renowned group to do it. It's not us doing it. IBTC has done this survey for us, which is for a number of years, which is great because we can compare it because we're asking a lot of the same questions every 5 years. But they do this nationally, so that also allows us to see how they're doing in a variety of areas compared to our peers throughout the country. And what's also important, again, statistically valid, we're trying to make sure that we really are getting a good cross-section and our respondents largely represent the age distribution, males, females, educational attainment, income levels. But we also want to make sure that we've got a good representation of our residents throughout the community. And for our planning purposes, we don't exactly follow the council districts because your lines are kind of low. They don't follow. You're going based on the population, but we simplified it a little bit. But it's somewhat similar to the districts and stuff, so that we can dig into that survey and understand what does the northwest side of Carmel need compared to southeast Carmel, because those needs are not necessarily the same. The resources that we have throughout the community aren't necessarily the same. So it really allows us, especially from a management perspective, to dig deeper to understand the specific needs of the town, which helps us prioritize this thing. This is a statistic that you've heard me say before, but when we ask our residents, the value of parks, recreation, and open space, 99% of our residents say that it's important or very important. And to me, and that actually, compared to 5 years ago, that important, very important was 99%. But what you can see is a shift upward in each category. So these 2018, we blasted it before this sales part survey, 73% said it was very important. That percentage went up to 86%. Our important was down from 19, it was 20% to about 13%, but that's because everyone jumped up to the very important. And then even if you look at the somewhat important, only 1% said that before it was 5%. So everyone has, you see this trend of increased value of parks, recreation, and open space. And I think, there's a lot of bad things that happened out of COVID-19. Almost everything was bad. But one of the things that was really positive for us in Parks and Recreation is that people rediscovered the restorative power of being outside. And that's reflected in our usage of the parks, which is my next slide. Showing, we ask people to identify which parks they go to. And this supplements information. We have counters. We use Placer AI so that we can understand where people are going. But this is through the survey. And almost every park, you've seen a huge uptick in the amount of people that are using it. I'll jump to Meadowlark Park, 8% in 2018 to 29% when we did the last survey. And that was one of the bigger jumps, but almost in every area it's jumped. West Park went down, but not by much. But shortly before we did the survey, this park was still closed because we were finishing the renovations here. So of course the usage was a little bit down. People hadn't rediscovered them. It was open. So for the few that there's maybe a little difference, it's not a huge, I would say, statistically significant. And there's a really clear understanding as to why it wasn't. But we've seen the impact of the investment, the Clay Township Impact Program, and Over $30 million that's been reinvested in the park system. I mean, that's shown in these numbers, but also just people getting out to the parks. So that's pretty exciting. And then we asked them, how good of a job are we doing in maintaining our parks and facilities? Again, 99% say that our parks are either excellent from gate repair. And to put that in perspective, again, you see that projection, excellent, went from 63 to 71%. Again, I think that's partially reflective of the outstanding staff that we have here. It's also very reflective of the investment that we've made and reimagining the parks over the last several years. But this is, to me, what's amazing. 58%, the national average for excellent and good for park systems is 58%. The people that's a Carmel rated us 71% excellent. That's greater than the national average for both excellent and good. So again, and that's a team effort. That's because of the investment as a community, thanks to you, that we've made at Parks and Recreation. It's also a reflection of the outstanding team that I have that makes the magic happen so that we can provide these outstanding facilities. And then, of course, there's a wide variety of questions, but and I won't go through every single one of those. Again, I could keep you here for hours and days, but I don't know what's that. Looking at, if you could pick three things, what are your top three priorities for the future? And we diced this with several different questions, but in this particular one, there is a desire within the community, which I think, City Council heard as they were going through election season. I know the township hears as well for more green space, more parks throughout the community. So that was the number one, acquiring more parks and open space. And similar to that was number one 5 years ago when we did it as well, but a little bit stronger. There is definitely a renewed or found interest in the White River. That's not only because of what we're doing here at Carmel, it's because of the White River Vision Plan, the increased, metropolitan acknowledgement and understanding that we have this incredible natural resource. But that was number two, finishing the White River Greenway coming in too. Something that jumped up significantly, and again, I think this was a theme that we started hearing during election cycle as well, is a new center and expanded programming for seniors in the community. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the strategy and how does that relate to Carmel Bay Park and Recreation. Priorities. I'll sort of
So we asked the question two different ways. One is, do you have how important is a certain program or facility or amenity? But then we also asked it, how well is your need being met? So in this one, this is looking at for facilities and amenities based on how those two questions were answered. And if you look at the top priorities that were the highest, was the nature trails and boardwalks, which again, trails is something we've heard for decades when we've asked these questions. And paved and multi-use trails was also there, but there was kind of something that surprised us when we got the results was canoe kayak rentals and canoe kayak launch were also pretty high on the list of the community. And I think that kind of speaks to, as Michael mentioned, the renewed interest in the White River. The blue, anything that's blue is continued emphasis. So it doesn't mean it's not important. It's just not the top of what we heard from the community in the Siskiyou Ballot survey. So, indoor aquatic pools and facilities, pickleball courts, environmental education, which that was also seen when we asked this on programs. And anything down in green, it's just lower. It means everyone's doing a good job, or it's not as important by the community. So it doesn't mean it's like you ignore it. It's just that's kind of how it is when you shake it out on the priorities. And then we did it again for programs. And again, there's I would say a higher use on programs as it relates to priority in this survey that we did. So wellness programs, special events, senior specific, again, another theme that we heard both in community focus groups as well as on the surveys. Sports, outdoor adventure, arts, culture, nature education, and then aquatics were kind of in the top tier of that. So now we're kind of getting into the themes of kind of how we took all the community engagement that we did both through the surveys and the intercept surveys and the community focus groups. But these were kind of the main 6 themes that we heard. So again, special events was a new one that we heard this go around, is a renewed interest for the department to provide some more special events and senior programs, as we've discussed. It's really about how do we evaluate the role that Carmel Parks plays in regards to special events and for seniors. What is that through creating partnerships, but really to explore kind of what that could look like in the future. And again, that, like we said, that can be addressed through collaboration.
I think we'll talk about this when we get to some of the strategic plans that we have a little bit later in the survey. But one of the things that has always been our goal as a park system is to serve the underserved needs of the community. Now, when we were established, the Carmel Dads Club had been around for what year was that established?
1951.
And so 1959 to 1991. So the Dads Club was already doing a phenomenal job with youth sports, so there wasn't a need for the park system to provide the youth sports programming and the fields, quite frankly, because the Dads Club was doing that in collaboration with the school district. So a lot of park systems didn't do that, but we realized it was better for us to use our limited resources and areas that were being underserved in the community. And we've evolved over the course of the years, things. And sometimes things that once were high needs within the community or underserved needs of the community, all of a sudden no longer are there's more people that come in to take it. So special events is one of those areas where, in the early days of the park system, and even when I came on board a little over 20 years ago, we were doing special event programming. I mean, there were movies in the park here at West Park and family campouts and kids concerts and a wide variety of events that we would offer. The Easter egg hunts. Easter egg hunts are the world's worst event. Years of planning for it. Maybe it was to say that over exaggeration for it to be over in literally 1 minute. But anyway, one that I wasn't afraid to get run of. Not that I have anything against Easter. But what we found is as we started maturing, as we started ramping up marketing efforts, as we got a better understanding of how to use social media, we were driving so many people into the parks, the West Park, to River Heritage Park, where a lot of the events were held, that we were overwhelming the parks. Our events were beyond the carrying capacity of the parks. And then all of a sudden, we're having to park people in the natural areas, which is part and parcel of what the public says they want us to provide. So at the same time, the city is starting to develop the central portion, the city center area, and the arts and design district. The city is getting more and more into events to drive people to help support those businesses, at least in theory. And what we were finding, of course, we get a significant amount of our funding from the city of Carmel. It didn't seem to make sense to, one, overwhelm our parks, and two, compete against the city, because all of a sudden we're providing events on the exact same time that an event is happening in the arts and design district. So we decided, serve the underserved needs, city's taking care of that. So we took the funding that we were doing for special events and invested that in natural resource and environmental education, an area that's definitely in our wheelhouse, something that we worked on, and let the city take the lead on the events. Now what we're hearing is that obviously there are a lot of events in the central portion of the community. And we're hearing from our residents, and maybe you're hearing it as well, as we'd like, let's give some love to the east and west side of town. And so the idea is, we still have those same concerns about the carrying capacity of this park. We've added some parking, we've added this area since we were last doing the events, but it still has a finite carrying capacity of what we can do here. But maybe there's a way where, I'm not advocating for more programming staff now to be added to Carmel Clay Parks and Recreation, but maybe we work with the city or other organizations in the community to find a way to partner with them to be a host location or to help them work with the school district, which has broader, larger parking spaces that we sometimes have. Then we have this true collaboration to provide event programming that isn't necessarily coming out of our budget of any significance, and it isn't requiring us to add new staff, but we're providing a need that our residents are saying that they're wanting. Kind of the same thing with senior programming and facilities. Go to the Monarch Community Center, and you can see that in the earlier parts of the day, we're serving a lot of seniors, and that's a great thing. So we already have a facility that's serving seniors, and of course there's Prime Life, which has some challenges and stuff, but maybe there's ways that we can continue to collaborate to help people understand the resources that they have, as well as the resources and services that for seniors as well. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we go into the strategy.
Yeah. So the next theme was kind of really the outdoor adventure opportunities and how can the department kind of help with those. So that also included activation of the White River, which again is what was kind of reiterated from the survey results. And then again, canoe, kayak, launch and rentals, and finding a way, what's the appropriate role for the department to play with that. Again, connectivity, I would say, has been the last 15 years has been the number one thing we hear from the community. So that's completion of the White River Greenway we heard through focus groups, as well as continue nature and paved trail development within the city.
And of course, we've heard feedback too about wanting to see the perimeter pathways along the roads, filling in those gaps where they exist. That's not our responsibility, but of course, people think of trails and they think of parks, so we've heard about that as well. And of course, the city's making investments to address those areas as well, and to work closely with the administration, engineering, DOCS to help identify those needs and advocate for that as well.
And then another one was the capacity and overcrowding at facilities. I think this kind of goes back to kind of the survey results where you saw the increase in usage of parks and facilities over 5 years ago. And, that was, we heard that in focus groups as well as on the survey about the MCC and the water park and summer camps. It's just difficult for people to get into some of the summer camp programs that the department offers.
And the issues that we have, especially as it pertains to the community center at the water park and summer camps, the capacity thing, are really very different. So for summer camps, our capacity issue is facilities to be able to host camps in. We do actually a pretty good job for our after school program. We have challenges in finding enough staff. We have much greater demand for people to participate in the after school program, but just as after school programs throughout the country, actually throughout the world, just finding people to staff them is a challenge. So that's the capacity challenge that we have for an after school. But for summer camps, it's typically a little bit easier to get staff. You got more kids home from college that, especially if they're in education or other programming, that we easily don't have a huge issue. And Tiffany, please tell me if I'm wrong, as far as getting people for the summer camps, but finding places to do it. I mean, we're using this facility. We're using Wellfond Pavilion in Founders Park. We have some camps in the Monon Community Center, which creates different types of challenges. We have camps going on in the 3 middle schools. The schools, we used to do some of the elementary schools, but not the middle schools. But ultimately, we can't use because the schools are doing a lot of work on the school buildings during the summer. It became easiest to concentrate us in middle schools, so they provide a space. But our biggest challenge is finding more space so that we can meet that demand. And part of that, Bear Creek Park, the master plan envisions another facility comparable to this that we can expand camp programs. We'll have 3 camps going, or 3 different types of camp programs going on here. Around 100 campers here, 120, 150? Okay, 150. That's right, about 50. So, so more spaces that we can create. And I have to brag on our camps. We are probably one of the only, if not only, park system where the revenues that we generate from our summer camps help construct facilities that we host summer camps in. So this building, about $1.7 million of accumulated revenues, net income, profits, if you will, in private sector speak, from summer camps were reinvested by helping build it. The 1.7 alone didn't build this, but it was a huge boost to make this building possible. And we're working on our war chest again so that when we're in a position to do the building in Bear Creek Park, again, we'll use some of those dollars that we've generated to create yet another facility that we can host camps in. Not many places do that. It's mine.
When University High School did a possible side,
Man, they do your own camps. So
Nothing.
Mike, how many do you have over at the Aletto Center also in the Summer Kingdom?
Oh, thank you. We do. We have another 150, 100. Yeah. So, and that number keeps growing.
Can you add to that one with being as big as it is in the facility?
And we're sharing space with some of the that's clubs and other programming's happening, but we keep growing that over it. So yeah, thank you, Paul. The Aletto, I always forget the official name of it, but the Aletto Center, they are wonderful facilities. So we have one of our sports oriented camps based out of there, and also Beach and Coffeeers. For the Monarch Community Center Water Park, the capacity issues, I think there's a couple things going, like the water park. We actually have induced, from when we opened, we use the official bathing capacity under state statute is over 2,100, but we only will allow about 1,500 on a really good day, maybe around 1,600 in there, because we find that if we get above those numbers, the challenges are we don't have enough parking spaces within the park. Even though technically, legally, we can get more people in there, it's a miserable experience because everything's crowded around chairs, around spaces. We have more lost children, which usually means lost parents. We have more people behaving badly. We have just those types of challenges. And what we found, because of the camera system that we have that helps us count the number of people we have, that when we're that 1,500 range of really good staff, that you don't have like tons of summer camps in there as well, that's sort of the sweet spot where everything moves pretty smoothly. And we also find that we actually have more people go through it. We have the turnovers a little bit more quicker, and we actually get more people through it. Revenues also increase, but which sometimes means that you have to wait a little bit, especially when you get there right when the gates open. There's a line and stuff, but usually can get in pretty quickly. But one of the perceptions when we're digging in with some of the focus groups a little bit is that, we built the water park to be a regional facility. We understood, and definitely from the early days when we weren't achieving cost recovery, and we had a 50% higher rate for non-residents didn't come to us, and we needed the non-residents to be able to achieve cost recovery. So it was built with the idea that we're going to draw people into the community, which can have some additional benefits to it. Brings those people into Carmel. They maybe go to some of our restaurants and businesses to help with the economy. But some of that, the capacity to crowding was also code that the people that are coming don't look like this. If you come at certain times, especially on more so the weekends than during the weeks, there are times where the number of African Americans, and we know this from Placer AI, which is mining data from these to understand where people are coming from. We know that 22 and 24% of our visitors are African American, and I think we all know that that doesn't represent the African American percentage in Carmel as full. So people are noticing that, and not all residents, but there's a certain percentage that, because it's clear that people are coming from out, that creates some concerns. And we have been working on. We've reinstituted the same concept of non-resident rates, but we don't call them non-resident rates. We provide our residents a discounted rate, and so on. But there's a price separation between residents and non-residents to help, because we're at a point where we are getting more people coming into things in totality, and sort of letting supply. And I know Joshua was saying, well, we should also consider dynamic pricing, and that's something we do look at. There's been concerns, but every now and then I do revisit that, and actually I need to set up another meeting to explore that further. But we're looking at pricing strategies using the laws of supply and demand. But some of it, the city's it's called for something else. And the Mona Community Center, you know, we look back to pre-pandemic numbers there. The number of group fitness classes we're offering is back and beyond where we were. Our memberships are essentially the same as they were before. So, you know, before the pandemic, we were crowded, and we're crowded again. So that's a reality, and that kind of regulates itself, you know. And we also do have private entities, fitness centers here. So, you know, it was never our intent to push out the private sector, and clearly the private sector continues to succeed in this community as well.
And kind of the last two themes that we heard from the community is really about the long-term funding solution for the department. And that was kind of three different ways. One was on park impact fees that reach the park system. Kind of what's the role of the foundation over the next 5-10 plus years on where do they fit in solving the funding solution. And then the last is park development. And it was really focused around finishing the development at Bear Creek Park.
And that's something that we've always heard is, you know, our residents, we build nice things, but we've made a significant investment in our park system. The asset value of our park system, when we were doing the zone improvement plan for the impact fee, $407 million, 285 that was just to build assets, the playgrounds, the trails, everything like that. And that was from numbers from the end of last year, beginning of this year. So those numbers are up by probably about 20. I didn't look at them before I came here, but probably up by 20 million as the bridge finishes up. Some of the other assets come to us. You know, we're probably approaching an asset value of close to $450 million now. So we have invested a lot in our park system, and there's a desire from the community for us to invest more. So here's where we start talking about taking all that information that we've heard and creating our goals and objectives, the strategy for moving forward over the next 5 years. And the first part of it, we like talking about our guiding principles. This is something that we introduced. It's in our current master plan. This might be probably,
I think it's 10 years.
What we found is just as there's themes for what the community, what we hear in the feedback, there are kind of themes for the goals that we establish. So we have our three guiding principles, which is enhancing park and recreation opportunities in the community, providing exceptional customer experiences, and, you know, and sort of talking about that last theme that we've heard, ensuring the long-term sustainability of the park and recreation system. And for us, sustainability has always, of course, you know, we're the green department, so we are not the green party, not the green plan, but you know, we're responsible for the environmental stewardship of our community, and that's paramount of who we are. But sustainability to us means financially sustainable to them. As what's also important about the guiding principles, so each of our mixed goals that we'll be talking about are grouped in one of those buckets. But those guiding principles go all the way down to all of our full-time employees. So we have a merit-based system for approving our employees' raises. And the goals that we establish for our employees tie directly to those guiding principles. So they'll have things regardless of their position, whether they're clerical, whether they're parks and natural resources helping maintain, whether they're a division director. They're all have goals that helps determine what their raises are going to be tied to those government benefits. So under enhanced opportunity, first and foremost, to prioritization of parks, greenways, and natural areas, especially in our underserved areas. So where are underserved areas predominantly? Well, west side of Carmel still. At this point, we still have West Park, and we have Bear Creek Park, which, thanks to the recent lease rental bond from the council, will have the funding to do the incredible phase 1 development of that park. But that's not open of any significance to the public yet. But there's more need for that. And of course, we do recognize that Coxhall Gardens, the county park, is here. So we do look at that big picture, but even factoring in Coxhall, This is an area that certainly could use more parkland, but also a challenge because there's not a lot of vacant land left, and the land that is out here is certainly not cheap. Also, as we continue to develop in the central portion of the community, there's needs for additional green space and in parks and recreation within that portion too. The parks on the west side are probably going to look different and maybe not be as large as they are on the west side or east sides of town, but that's certainly a need. And then on the east side of town, we have this incredible natural resource called the White River, and we're very fortunate that we have a significant portion of the White River frontage owned either by the city of Carmel with management agreements to parks to develop and maintain that. You have Honor Prairie, which has a significant amount of holdings along the river, a lot of it kept in a green state, or greenish states. Golf courses are kind of green. And you also have the county's Presser Park, Foamy Resort Park. So there's a lot of public assets or not-for-profit assets along the river, but there's opportunities for additional infill in there, especially southbound here in 16th Street. I've also jump across the street and with the Martin Mary Quarry that we know will be coming to us down the road. Expanding trails, river access, and environmental education along the White River Regional Corridor. So that's an area that we definitely see a lot of potential there. And that kind of dovetailed into what I was saying before. We've identified some additional properties that, especially south of 116th Street and a couple of places north of there as well, that would be really great for helping us expand the White River Greenway, leaving not a formal nature center, but educational experiences out there. I think environmental education can look differently. It doesn't always have to be in the old-fashioned nature center. It can be through different mechanisms. And facilitating implementation West Regional Corridor. And that is, again, our idea, finding additional green spaces on the west side and working with organizations like University High School, like Carmel Place School, like the Dance Club, to identify how can we better leverage and better connect, also working with the city on the perimeter pathways to do the stream of pearls, if you will, of green spaces that don't necessarily have to be owned and developed and managed by Carmel Bay Parks and Recreation. And then I'll use University High School as an example, as they're looking to further develop their campus. They have a very strong green focus. So they're working on grants and we'll work with them when we see grant opportunities that don't work for us, but might work for in a school setting, to basically create some additional wetlands over there. They want to invite the public in there. They want to see it as opportunity when the kids are not in session or in class to invite the public to actually go over there. And the wetlands that they want to create, educational experiences they want to create, they don't compete with what we have here. So you can see one type of wetland here, and then in addition, seeing a different type of wetland over there. But we've invited them to our planning efforts here for West Park. They've invited us to their planning efforts across the street. So there's those type of opportunities that we're already doing. But this is to say that we're going to continue to build upon that. Enhancing opportunities. Again, one of the things that we talked about, parks in the central portion of our community are by necessity because of what's being built there, what has been built there, what is there, are going to look different. You're not going to have a 120-acre West Park in the central portion of Carmel. But what would be really good to ensure that all of the units of government that have a role in the development of the central area are on the same page, especially as it pertains to parks and public spaces and green spaces. So what we're proposing is putting together a vision plan for parks within the central portion, inviting you all to the table, inviting the administration and economic development and the CRC, so that we are working on and from the same themes that have the same expectation as what is appropriate for public spaces, whether it's office, whether it's in developers, whatever it might be, and what isn't, so that we all can be proud of the spaces and know that we're all rolling in the same direction. We've made tremendous progress in that. There's tons of cooperation happening now as I work with my counterparts in the city, but we don't have this unified plan, and I think that this would help us significantly. Again, development of educational facilities, programs, and I probably should use reverse programs and facilities, because, like I said, I think we can do a lot of the programming out of the facilities and parks that we have. Again, Bear Creek's going to provide additional opportunities, but I don't think we necessarily have to build a traditional old-fashioned nature center. I think we can look at different things. Potential partnerships we've talked about Conner Ferry in the past that may or may not be appropriate in the future. Working with them on something like that, but I never want to turn down conversations with other organizations that we can collaborate, or if Conner Ferry moves forward and we are not involved in that, if they're providing an experience that helps with nature education, then that's a win for the communities. Again, we don't have to do everything. And then hopefully you're hearing that theme, seeking innovative solutions. I am not coming in front of you saying that we have to do all of this by ourselves. I alone can do it. Parks alone can do it. The strength of this community is the collaborations that we can create. There are some incredible organizations. We have an incredible school district. We have an incredible private school right across the street. We have the dance club. There's a lot of things, and together each of us can accomplish more. It really rings true, and that is part of our spirit. And so we developed this new, and helping begin implementing this new comprehensive master plan. Is how can we develop and enhance those collaborations and find new collaborators to better serve our residents. So providing exceptional experience days, continuing to reimagine our existing parks through effective planning, appropriate updates. So, again, this goes back to the theme, maintaining what we have, but building upon what we have, ensuring that we have the means to, we're proud to have all of our assets in an asset management plan as we build in parks, as in Bridge, that the township is predominantly funding with some additional dollars from parks and other partners. As those come online, those immediately will go into the asset management plan, and we'll know exactly when major components are anticipated to need to be upgraded. We know playgrounds have a life cycle of about 20 years. So everything that we've just done over the last couple of years, and in 20 years, we're going to have to be revisiting that. But there are other things within the parks. So making sure that we continue to reimagine our parks and reinvest in our parks and assets. Create nature preserve experiences throughout the park system. So we hear routinely from our residents that they want to see nature in our parks. We are unique for a municipal park system that over 80% of our 700 acres that we own and or manage is in a natural state. And that could be a prairie, that could be forest, that could be open water, but it's in a natural state. Now, part of that is because the Dance Club has those rules in other locations, but that's pretty unique for us. But that's also why we were created. That's why the public, why Citizens for Green Space initiated. They wanted to have these areas that were in a natural state, and that's very much what we're doing. The benefit of that too is it's a lot cheaper to maintain a prairie than it is a field that the Dance Club is. There's just a lot more maintenance with that. So that helps us with not having to require as many tax dollars, because of how we maintain parks, but the community very much wants that natural experience in parks. Providing a diverse selection of facilities and amenities to accommodate your health and recreation pursuits. In the survey results and themes that we've heard from the other input, we're hearing a very strong interest in our community for outdoor recreation and active recreation, whether that's kayaking, which went from at nothing expectation from the community to all of a sudden one of our top ones. But it also could be, and I think the river really helps us with this, having experiences like a pump track for bicycles, mountain bikes, great opportunities down here. The quarry, when it comes online, the opportunities for outdoor recreation, active recreation are pretty profound. Of course, we'll do public input with that, but all of that are things that we're taking a look at. Balancing and expanding program opportunities throughout the community. And again, that's looking out. This is, we're always adjusting our summer camps based on the feedback that we have. We're always adjusting all of our programs. So making sure that we remain nimble to understand what the residents want. And when we see a program starting to die off, don't hold on to it just because we've offered it forever. Let's evolve to what the community wants. And also let's work with the partners to provide the things that maybe they're better to provide than we are. Even on exceptional experiences, balancing and expanding our volunteer program. So that's another way that we can do more with less as we bring on our next creatings. We have citizens helping us do biology so that we understand how effective we are at removing invasive species or how much wildlife we have, and to work. Are the things that we're doing successful? Are we making a dent in things, or is it creating more challenges? The robust adaptive programs serving people with disabilities, volunteers help us do more with that. That's we have the ability to be able to achieve these other things is looking for volunteers. And this is probably one of the areas where if we were to add staffing is one that would be important for us, because volunteers don't you can't just say, hey, we want you to do this and put dollars. There has to be some degree of guidance with that. And our biggest challenge is, especially for our environmental volunteers, is that we're pretty much at our capacity with the staff that we have for what we do. I mean, we find little opportunities, but there's a lot more that we could do. It's also been conversations, and Gareth and I haven't been able to dig deeper, but I think she has an interest in seeing parks we were involved in volunteer for the community, and what that looks like, I don't know. But that's an area that we'll explore over the course of the next 5 years, and it's trying to the state. Continuing to reinvest in our revenue facilities by adequately placing amenities. And this is important to that, maintaining that 84% cost recovery. And I will state the 84%, as we bring more parks that don't have revenue generating components to them, that cost recovery is likely not always going to stay at 84% unless you have programs, facilities that can actually contribute new money to the formula. But again, 25%, 84%. So, we're doing good, incredible with that. Even if it becomes 80%, it's still way higher as we bring additional parks on. But at the same point, for us to maintain 100% cost recovery at the Monarch Community Center or at the water park, we have to continually reinvest in the equipment we have there. Because, about every 3 years, we're swapping out fitness equipment. I remember they've done a cardio equipment, because after 3 years, after the millions of miles that go on it, they wear it out. So if we want people to spend their discretionary time and income, we have to have the things that you can get at an Allied Fitness. I go there periodically, and I can tell you what we provide is some ice cream and some of the stuff they have. But we have to have that equipment. We have to maintain the Monarch Community Center in top shape. We have to maintain and periodically add new features or amenities to the water park to get people to continue to come, because there's always something new and shiny that's being built somewhere else. So we've got to continually reinvest, or we get into the cycle where if things get old, if things get tired, people will take their dollars out as well. And then we get in a deeper hole. 84% becomes 80%, becomes 70%. And that just becomes a vacuuming, flushing sound that none of us from the experience. Attract and retain high-performing employees. So one of my goals since I was hired, and I know it was Mark when he was director, and it's been the boards as well, is being an employer of choice. I want to be a place that people want to work and stay, and and I'm not afraid of having some turnover because some employees maybe don't meet our standards. Or I'm never sad when an employee has an opportunity to grow or go somewhere else. I take that as a coaching tree because, there's only so many opportunities to move up within an organization. So if we're creating those opportunities, and people find our staff attractive, that means we're doing something right for the courts. But by and large, we want to make sure that we're providing competitive salaries and benefits, which I would argue that are. Every 3 years, we do an assessment of all our full-time positions to make sure that we're still in line with the market, looking at the city, looking at other park and recreation systems, looking at the Targets and Starbucks, because we're competing with them as well, especially for our part-time staff. But we're looking at all of that. The part-time staff, we tend to do that on a more frequent basis because, we have, next year we'll have to the budget 80 full-time positions. We have last month, the number was 692 total employees. So obviously, the vast majority of them are part-time and seasonal. So we really have to look closely at what others' employment opportunities and remain competitive. And I think we do a pretty good job with that. But we want to look at that. We also want to have a positive culture that builds up our employees, provides learning opportunities. We have scholarship opportunities for our full-time employees, just like city employees have. But we also extend scholarship opportunities for our part-time employees. You have to work a certain amount of hours to be able to do that, and certainly not the same level benefits. But we're trying to build up all of our employees. We provide. We have a culture community study, culture committee that is employee-led, that comes up with activities and events to keep our staff engaged and feel valued and develop community amongst themselves. Always looking at those opportunities. And that's paramount to make sure that we continue doing those things to be that employer of choice. And then, of course, always examining internal and external communication. I could knock on every door in Carmel and there'd be someone that would claim that they don't know. I mean, after I did that, it would be someone that says, "Wait, I have no idea you were doing that," even though I just told you that. We all know that, but there are true things about ensuring that we have good communication, ensuring that our residents and the community and our customers know what services we're providing so that they come and give us some discretionary time and income. Ensuring that our team knows what's going on so that they can inform the public of what we're doing when asked. Internal communications is also lead with our counterparts at the city, at the township, other organizations. So, if we ever think that we're doing it perfectly, then our heads in the sand, because there's always opportunities for improvement. Because as soon as you're doing something right, something changes and new technology comes in. So we understand that and always remain focused on that. And then ensuring term sustainability. You all know this one. We have to figure out the long-term funding. Without the long-term funding, everything I'm talking about becomes a huge challenge. Continuing and expanding our conservation management practices throughout the park system. So again, we are proud of being environmental stewards. So making sure that we continue working on invasive species, continuing working on providing good habitat, and creating those green spaces that maybe are for the natural environment, but our public enjoy others will like coming to the park, seeing that, doing the bird watching, doing the things that you can do with tribe and trash, just watch it and experience it and immerse in that. And then expanding environmental education, park stewardship program. This is really the volunteers, the citizen science stuff. So, and some of these are themes that are in each of the buckets because you just have to have that. Then in each one of these, there's a laundry list of these are sort of big picture things. We've ironed it down to give a better understanding exactly what does it mean to achieve success in each one of those. So I didn't want to go into nitty-gritty detail in each one of those, but I did want you to understand themes best. So ensuring long-term sustainability, continuing to align our business practices to achieve the 100% cost recovery. And we've started the path. And we believe it's an appropriate mandate that a community center, that extended skill enrichment, our programming should be 100% cost recovery. Again, we say this is to hold ourselves accountable, it's in our plan that says that's what we're striving for and we continue to do. And then as an organization, in the past, in the present, in the future, we think it's important to make informed decisions. And you can only make informed decisions if you have information. So continue to work on key performance indicators, evolving those as new technologies come in place, as new facilities, but identifying what those key performance indicators are. We have many now already, but cost recovery being number one, and continuing to look at those. And then our top 4 goals that all build into things that we talked about. And number 1, West Carmel Green Space, fix to the funding from the City Council. We'll be able to begin implementation of the Deer Creek Park Master Plan. We're also looking to leverage those money to go a little bit further. We do have some impact fees that we can add to the dollars, the $8 million between what's dedicated for the parks and the trails around Deer Creek and Mont Shelburne, that area. Added to that, we've got about $1.7 million in impact fees in the bank currently that we can contribute towards Bear Creek Park. And we are still waiting to hear back from DNR that if we're going to receive the $1 million Land Water Conservation Fund grant. We'll see. DNR, I don't think they like Carm. Sit all along. We'll see. Continuing implementation of the West Park Master Plan. So again, we got 120 acres here. There's more opportunities to provide components here. I could see at the master plan that said there might be an opportunity for a dog park here. We know that we need more dog parks, so we'll continue to consider that. We have here on the 40 acres at Rich Lake. We had 75 acres and bought 5 acres to Riley property. We bought the 40 acres that was the Perlman homestead. The house was immediately to our west. That's thankfully no longer there. But there's more opportunities to expand recreation and trails here. There's more opportunities. We were very fortunate to have it was around $9 million. I think it was around $8 million between impact funds and dollars that the park board brought to the table for the reimagination of West Park. But that didn't apply all the playground that we wanted. So there's opportunities for multiple experiences there. So continue to put in that master plan as back here, and then securing additional partner land again, and we're helping to preserve that here in the community. So and we're always looking at that, and the council knows we're exploring a few opportunities there as well. Achieving more through the fact that it's operation. Again, part and parcel is one of our top 4 goals is we're going to continue to work with others to do more. Talked about the green space vision plan for the central portion of Carmel, expanding opportunities for senior program. I don't think that Carmel State Parks and Recreation or the dollars from the city of Carmel we need to build a new senior center. I think we can serve some of those needs and need to serve some of those things in the Monarch Community Center. I do think that there's opportunities with us or with working with the city and Prime Life to provide more opportunities for our residents. When exploring, like I talked about before, special event programs, what they would part is seeing us more as either helping promote them or provide locations for them, but being the White and Silver partners that they unpackage. The White River Corridor, you've all heard me talk about that being our most significant natural resource. So we really want to embrace that, celebrate that, get the White River Greenway in place. Work comes opportunities I talked about. That's where a lot of our outdoor adventure recreation can take place. It's big. I mean, we are between our land holdings, the county's land holdings, and Fisher's land holdings, which will be easily accessible with the new bridge. We effectively will have around 1,000 acres where I have between 96th Street and Russell and Hundreds. Usually a little bit more. We could go up to Prather. We have almost state park land, the volume of land and opportunities. We try not to facilities to do that. So we really want to lean into that. And again, working with our partners, the county, the Fishers, when they come around to play nice with us,
those are the things that we, I mean, you don't know the top four is going to be lucky. So security building, long-term funding, dedicated sources, the impact fees, we've really already addressed that. So as we started this plan, we're still working through that, but the actions of the city council, we would about that taken care of. But we need to make sure we continue to keep that taken care of. And I think it's important, and the plan is renegotiating the interlocal. It doesn't expire at the end of this year. It technically continues, but the township, will have no funding obligations beyond the repayment of bonds, which is not significant. But the board really changes. So, we've got the third amendment that will give us an additional 2 years to work on some of these other things on handbrake incidents that have come through the townships prepared to also sign that once we have that through council. So, we're working towards that, but we also need to have a bigger picture. And then one of the things that I'm really striving to do, I think we can do that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. For some of you, a little over 5 years ago, you saw this slide up. So, here's where we are today. With debt, about 62 days until the bond is paid off. It may actually be a few days before that, but that's then dropped the date for the payment. So, one of our major funding sources would be the local income tax dollars simply runs away. So we really have to address that. And we know what the dollar amounts are. Because of the life cycle asset management plan that we have, some keynotes, roughly these should be viewed as orders of magnitude because of the level of maintenance that we do in our parks, we typically are able to get a little bit more than what industry standards say that we should, the engineers say that we should. But relatively speaking, over the next 5 years, just to maintain the park system we have today, we're going to need about $5.1 million. Based on what we've identified to our capital improvement plan, this is on average on an annual basis, we're going to need a little under $12 million. So $16, $17 million on average for the new plan, taking care of what we have. But let's go up over the next 5-year period. And of course, the further you get out, the more prey these networks become. The new infrastructure doesn't include any knowledge for once the quarry comes on to us in 3 to 5 years. We didn't factor in any dollars for that. And so we know those numbers for the wish list of new things will only go up. And so we bring these new things on, they then go into the life cycle asset management plan, which gives us a better understanding of the capital replacement numbers. But over the next 2 years, on an average, about $6.5 million for capital repairs makes it a little bit too much. Number structure, $17 million, and in round numbers, it may have heard me say that before. So we know what we need. Reality is we may never get to, on average, the $17 million, but we know that we have to do at least the $6.5 million because we have to take care of the investment that the community's made. And we know that we need to do something here to provide things to the assets that the community's demanding all of us. And I to be fine. We talked about the funding options, and if that, just as the council understood as you were looking at the $110 million lease rental bond and how the state rules really limits how you can fund things. We don't have a whole lot of options that are truly available to us today. You can always reallocate funds from other sources, but that's really what it all to Peter and can create its own changes. And might be some opportunities for it, but it's not going to solve all the problems you have. It's probably a relatively small amount. Bonds, the bond programs that the township had recently done through the Clay Township Impact Program, the lease rental bond that the city council just approved. Those are all viable funding options that I could be considered.
one that hasn't been tapped in here in this community is a park district special benefits tax. State law allows that to happen, and state law allows that to be used for operations and or for capital, but with an asterisk there. If you're using it for operations, it falls within your maximum levy. The only way you get it outside the maximum levy, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, is to issue bonds. So realistically, in our community, the only way that we can tap into the special benefits tax, which of course would be a new levy on our property owners, is to issue bonds that are guaranteed by the special benefits tax. And our debt limit is effectively essentially the same as what the city tax, which in all obligation line takes around $60 million. So random dollars and stuff, not for clubs and we do that. It's for $60 million, but that is one of the options that's available there. Unfortunately, the way the state law is, because if it's for operations or if you're not issuing a bond, even if you want to use it for capital, within the maximum levy, the state's effectively incentivizing us to borrow. And if you talk to some of our legislatures, it seems like they don't want us to borrow, but the only mechanisms that they provide us to actually get money is to borrow. We can look at local income taxes. We discussed the Wild Beast and Trailer Lift in Central Park bond, but that runs out very quickly. We know the township's going to need most, if not all of those dollars, just for their operations and providing the core release. So I'm not sure that's really a viable word. It's certainly not the magic answer. And even if they could give us every dollar, this year we're getting roughly $3.5 billion. What the township's going to be getting is probably half of that, and each year it passes from there. So it quickly becomes insignificant. When you're trying to build, the master plan for Bear Creek Park, to do everything in the master plan is $30 million. $1 million is not going to get you there, So there is, in contrary with Council Bosma, the county board, the Lit Council, which has representation from each of the municipalities of the county, could get together and decide to increase that. But that's, I think, Fishers and Carmel together could say, yes, we could do that and overrule everyone else. Otherwise, you're going to at least get the county, probably either Westfield or Nova's going to do that. But that's a much broader ramification. And then we're also pursuing special legislation. Harmon Forest and Recreation has routine in a lobbyist. We're working with Ken currently. I have a meeting with House Ways and Means Chair Thompson next week to discuss opportunities. Brian has had conversations with legislative leadership as well. Obviously, anything at the state house doesn't guarantee. You've got to get a broader buy-in, but there does appear to be a receptiveness to listening, which means that there's some opportunities. We didn't get a hell no, so that's always positive. And what looks like maybe the most viable tactic is doing might be in a state that really doesn't like referendums, possibly referendum that could be used parks. So we're exploring that. In the perfect world, I'd love to be in a park district where we have a tax rate and separate from cities and townships, so that we're not messing with your lots of these or those types of things. But realistically, I just don't see that. I think could be completely wrong, but I don't see that as a higher likelihood. But I do see that there may be a path forward for a referendum, so that with the consent of either the township board or city council, that one or the other entities would be able to go to the residents after you say, yeah, we're willing to do that, to see, residents, you say you want this, being willing to do that. Now, the good thing is, just like any taxes and stuff,
the impact for most residents because of tax cuts is probably be somewhat limited. But we'll be exploring that, especially when we get further down from what the actual ramifications of that even could be. But that is something that we're exploring to head. But I will say that going back to the forward focuses and long-term sustainability and funding, I would really like to see a way to keep the marriage between the city and township together. And there are challenges, not intentional stuff. There's just challenges with funding because of the rules of the state. But I would argue that the success of Carmel Lake Parks and Recreation has been very much because of the unique partnership that has existed over the years between the city and the township. Because there have been times when the township has been able to be the cash cow for the park system. And there's been times the city has been able to, probably over most of the history of the park system, more so the township. But both of them have brought important dollars to the table. And, the dollars that the other can bring are dollars the other one doesn't have to. So if there's a way that we can work together to make that possible, maybe help the state change rules, I would encourage you as elected officials to definitely be receptive and open to that. I mean, obviously, we're not making decisions tonight, but that is a goal, because I think the hybrid system that we have here has allowed us as an organization, if we're a city department or a township department, we're part of a bigger entity, whereas my mandate, my department's mandate, the park board's mandate, it's Parks and Recreation. We're focused on lane if we try to stay in it. And we also have created, because of our cost recovery mandates, because of our focus on customer service, a very nimble organization. We're a retail operation, and we're also a development operation. Both have a little different things, but because of our organization structure, because we don't fall under the rules specifically in the city or the township, but we do try to closely monitor those and comply to them possible. It allows us to be a little bit nimble so that we can move faster, so that we can react to change things and change policies to meet the organization in order to it. So, as we continue the discussions on the different funding options, as we look at opportunities, I'm always looking at, is there an opportunity to keep that partnership, that collaboration, that local together? Because it has benefited our community, and I think it will continue to benefit community. We can figure out the nuts and bolts of it. I will say, talking about the special benefits tax, potentially talking about the operating referendum, more specifically the special benefits tax. We've had discussions with DLT Nest. The city under Indiana Park Law has the ability to have a park district tax, special benefits tax. The township under township character law has the ability to do it. But the way we operate as a joint department is that, as DOTF says, one or the other, not both, because your jurisdictions aren't the same. So we can't double dip. And also the way that your local is current written, that authority as the city fully annexed the township went to the city. There's no legal requirement that it be with the city or the township. It could be one or the other. But one of the things that I would propose, if the people are open to it, is that as a means to ensure the township has the capacity, and the township would have to be willing to do this, is that we transfer the special benefits tax authority from the city where it currently is to the township. Again, the township has to be amenable to that. City has to be amenable because they would be releasing that authority that they have that it could utilize to the state. But that's one thing to consider. And probably for the operating referendum, I'm guessing if something like that goes, again, the city and the township probably aren't both going to be able to do that. It's going to be one or the other. So if it's going to be one or the other, if the township it's amenable, I would recommend it go to the township, because that will be the machines by which the township is able to provide that additional capital dollars. So
discussions that we need to have. Obviously, the ramifications. It's a political discussion, and I recognize that. But that's kind of where we are. The lob's talking. But what questions do you have? Do you feel the big picture we're on the right page? I'm going to take this to the park board for final adoption. If you say, good board, none of that is good for us. But hopefully we're on the same page. But what questions do you have? What discussion?
It was a lot of times like, so what's the plan? What is the plan to make a recommendation that we then start discussing?
So if we get the amendment, the third amendment, which will buy us a little bit of time, if we don't get special legislation that provides a new funding mechanism, we'll know that relatively quick. We'll know that next year. At least it's going to be available in funding in the year or shortly thereafter. If we don't get that, we know what our funding options are. It's taxes or bonds that are issued by the city and or township. It's a special benefits tax that either the city or the township can do, or it's reallocation of existing funds. So we can have that conversation next year, early next year, quite frankly. And we can tell the exact, we know the dollars that we need. We can identify how much of that.
Okay, so I misunderstood. I thought we had kind of an impending situation here with the bond falling off, the loss of the lit, that we needed to start making. We've talked. I was at this meeting 5 years ago, and so I thought, okay, here we go again. Are we going to do something? So this was just an update tonight.
So the update, it was more about the big picture basketball.
Okay,
But we don't have to do something.
but not till next year.
No. I would like it resolved. I would like the answer resolved next year because I think that puts us on the sound footing so we know moving forward. We can't continue kicking the can down the road. Thanks to the actions, the major reinvestment that the township did, our assets are in pretty good order. Thanks to the funding that the city provided through the bonds, we have the dollars to begin implementing things that are in this master plan for next year. It's as we get past next year we've got some cash reserves from accumulated lit that is going to start running out. Impact fees was never designed as a primary funding source and stuff. So after next year, things start looking pretty dire for us. So we've got to have a solution at least identified. The wheels don't fall off in 2026. It already feels like 2025 with all the budget cycle. But they start falling off pretty big thereafter. So it is imperative that we just to solve. And like I said, I think we know the answers. Ultimately, it's a discussion between council and township board as to what are you going to do. And I can't make that decision for you.
From my perspective. So step number 1 is to extend the interlocal to give time to assess all of these and report back. So it's the extending it for 2 years gives us time to delve into all this and see what the likelihood is.
Absolutely. And one would follow it to the 2 years. We either figure out how the city and township can be viable partners. And if it's ultimately determined that there's just not the means, I don't think there's the intention, but the means to be able to do so, then in that 2-year period, we need to have a transition plan about how does this become probably city department and stuff. That can't happen overnight. And I think that we kind of have to work both paths. Because again, I think we're most successful as a joint department, but there are things that we can do because the park board still exists if we're a city department. There are mechanisms that can sure that we have the nimbleness to be able to do what we have to do, need to do to continue marketing, achieving cost recovery at the rate of New York to do it. But that's what the 2 years are for, is to identify exactly what the funding is going to be, whether it's both the city and the township or just the city. And if it is just the city, how do we transition departments so we set it up for success in the future? And that's what the 2 years are about.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Quick question. I guess I misunderstood, or maybe it's not clear to me. Why would the park district special benefits tax fall to the township? What's the, I missed that. Yeah, I just want to understand.
Currently, as the interlocal was written, that authority rests with the city. Under Indiana law, both the city and under Indiana law, both the city and the township can have their own park systems. And if we were completely independent, if they were completely independent, both of them could levy their own special benefits tax. Because we're a joint department, Department of Local Government Finance is set one or the other, but not both, as a relocal department. What I'm proposing is that authority be transferred to the township, and the township is a minimum, because that could be one of their challenges is having the capacity to issue debt now. So this could be their means by which they can issue.
Can I add something, Michael? It's all right, Counselor. So the 2002 interlocal, the township had a larger area than the city did, right? And it provided that as annexation occurred, the special taxing district would go with the annexation. So once the home place annexation occurred, there was no special benefits tax district available to the township. So that would have to be changed by a new interlocal. We didn't propose that in the Third Amendment that's before you now, because that's a big decision. And we were directed just to try to buy some time so people can discuss.
They do so.
Yeah.
Great.
I have a question. Are you also asking tonight for the council and the township to agree on the master plan?
So what I'm hoping to hear from the township and the council is a consensus that the strategy that we've identified is in alignment with something that you can support, so that I'm not asking you to take a vote on it. There's no legal requirement for you to take a vote. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right path, so that then when the park board approves it, it's something that as a community we can agree is these are going to be the goals for the next 5 years for the park system. So that I'm trying to ensure that we have a consensus that the path we're on, when what we've identified is something that can support. But I'm not asking for you to vote on it, and just Jamal nods, yeah, that's the right thing, and that's I wouldn't want to do.
Can I think that it's pretty obvious that there's like an arterial wound here that needs some pressure to put on it. I think everybody gets that, but I couldn't help but bring up the fact that look, that's one step. I mean, we have to continue to reinvest in ourselves. We have a world-class park system. And I always liken it to when I was a kid, there was these little like pills, and you put them in water, and then they like grew into like, a crab or something. You know what I'm talking about, right? And that was like our park system. My understanding is in the 90s, when I was a young kid, Carmel had like 40 acres of park space. They couldn't manage all 40 acres. They gave 20 back to the county. And then Carmel added water, and now we have this world-class park system, all of which happened essentially overnight. So in addition to the shortfall that Mike was talking about, we have, I don't know what the current, with inflation is, but let's call it $250 million worth of infrastructure. That's pretty close, Michael. And then we have new parklands that will be coming on board, including what could be the largest aquatic park in the region, over by Hazeldale and 106. My plea here is, I think we all agree we need to solve this immediate problem, but let's all keep in mind that we can't stop there. We have a great system. We don't want it to turn into park systems that we see nearby, where they got old, they got tired, they didn't get funded, and they fell apart, and then they became the dregs. So I'm making a heartfelt plea here. We don't have to solve any of these problems tonight, but please let's not just stop at the storm that Michael has identified on the horizon.
And one of the things on fund, I didn't mention specifically the foundation because that's in the layers below. We talked a lot about collaboration. Obviously, the foundation, I think, increasingly becomes important for us. But the foundation, they're not the Lilly Foundation. They don't have those resources, and it'll be generations before there's even that. I mean, miracles happen, but that's not going to solve our funding problems and stuff. But we are working closely with the foundation, working to leverage their opportunity to match grants. Right now, they're helping us match grants of $20,000 to $25,000. But as they become more and more mature, as we hopefully work with the foundation, work with counselors, township board members that can help tie us to the people in the community that either are passionate about parks, that have pockets that can help create endowments and stuff. I think it can become an increasingly more important. But so I don't want to say the foundation is part of the solution, but it is not all the solution because it's just not realistic.
We do become the means by which people can get tax-free tax incrementals, for donations of land and property and that kind of thing. That you don't have that as much.
What other questions, comments, discussion? As always, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here tonight. Thank you for those of you that were able to participate in some of the public input processes, the focus groups. Thank you for the continual support that you've demonstrated year after year, and as bodies, decades after decades, and creating the park system that we have today. It's pretty special to be able to get 2 units of government, let alone effectively the way we're created, 3 units of government to play nicely together for the benefit of the community. And time after time, we've demonstrated that, especially for Parks and Recreation, we do that. It's because the residents support it, and it's because we make an impact on the quality of lives about those that choose to live, work, and play here. So thank you for your roles, for your support, for your continued dialogue. If you have comments or concerns or things that you want to share with me afterwards, after you think about it a little bit, you know how to reach me. I'm always here to be a resource for each and every one of you. But thank you very much. And I will, if there are no additional questions, I think I've heard a consensus that it's okay to take this to the park board in December. I would let the presiding officers of the three bodies bring the meeting to a close.
I declare the park board adjourned.
Okay. Gossels. City Council's adjourned.
Clay Township's adjourned.
Thank you very much.